This deck survived the ban list and is probably one of the better decks of the format. Hey guys, this is Tom Box, and I'm pretty rushed to get you this deck profile of the updated post-ban list of Fiendsmith Chimera. We all know there's Duke of Demise coming out in the future, so that's just gonna make our life a whole lot easier, and we get to replace some of the cards in the extract, like Lacrima. Anyways, long story short, I've got to go to Worlds tomorrow, and I'm gonna be dropping down in 8 hours, so I'm gonna get started with this deck profile. So let's get to the deck list. Okay, on with the deck list. It's more of a review session because not much actually has changed out of this deck, except for maybe the extract, just like a 2-card change. Starting off, Triple Kotal. I think it's like the best card in the deck. However, it does run into trolling issues. 2 Mirror Sword Knights. You can play a third if you want, but I'm not usually normal summoning this card unless I know it's like a super safe summon because you died at 1 Ash. I don't like playing into an Ash like that. I think that's really foolish. You're not just maximizing what you can and cannot do. Triple Nightmare Apprentice. One of the best cards in the entire deck, searches for any illusion, cannot be destroyed by battle, and then doesn't kill anything by battle herself. We have Triple Gazelle. Fusing this means you're winning the game, usually. It's very hard to resolve the fusion because people by now know how to beat this deck, and not letting this card enter the graveyard as a fusion material is probably one of the better parts to counter them. 2 Big Wing Baphomet, and of course 1 Master Tao. Glad this is getting a rarity upgrade because it is such a pivotal card in this entire deck. Then there is going to be the Ezham Chains. People are telling me, hey, don't play this. You're gonna be wanting a lot more Fiend names later on because double Fiends will give you the additional normal summon, which is pretty whack, honestly. A deck that already like loses because it only has 1 normal, giving them a 2nd normal. Welcome back Nightmare Goblin, and you're gonna want Fiends to get those names, so this with Fiendsmith will always work out. And to deal with the Yubel stuff with the King Tiger Wanghu, some people swear by this card. I'm just starting to try it out because I didn't really rely on it, because remember, Chimera isn't a deck that needs to break a full board. You need to break a partial board and find the OTK line. It's like Demon Slayers, it's like Tanjiro finding that thread back in season 1 and then slicing people's, well, I guess slicing the demon heads, right? Then we have the Evil Hero package to get into the Fiendsmith line. Very easy to throw into the graveyard. Necrom is like banish, summon a Adusted. Adusted also searches for a polymerization, or rather Dark Fusion. So Dark Fusion is great. And then we have 1 Diabelze. You can pair it with the continuous spell Legacy of the Duelist, which makes it so that players can only set 1 card, and if they set 1 card, you pop that 1 set card. That's the end of it. And since all spell cards need to be set, spell and traps need to be set, they don't get to set any more cards, so you actually get to play with an empty board. Consider that as like maybe a side card. You can main deck it if you want. Fiendsmith Engine, 2 engravers. You don't need to play a 3rd. It's not really that necessary because you can set up your engraver package just with Necrom or just with 1 fusion play. 1 Lurie. As for hand traps, we have 2 Bestial Magnamuts. I guess it's, sorry, not Magnamuts. Bestial Magnamut and a Druid's Worm. That's really weird if you play 2. You probably get DQ'd. We also have 2 Ash Blossoms and 2 Imperms. Look, I'm not playing a hand trap full build. I only need to break a partial board, so I'm trying to play the best ones possible without overloading. One of the issues with a deck like this, in terms of deck building, it's not like your Fiendsmith Snake Eyes or your Yubel. This isn't a deck that can function with solely just 1 card. There are 1-card combos, but they are fragile, and because they're fragile, you have to play stuff that lets you play with a mixed hand. It's a deck that works with a mixed hand rather than a 1-card combo. 1-card combo is like, oh, simplify game state, or you got lucky. You know what? When you get lucky, you get lucky. Spell card wise, we have 2 triple attack. You can put 1 triple attack instead. I'm on the verge of cutting this and maybe upping the Ash count a little bit just for better hand trapping. It is the beginning of the format after all, right? And then we have triple Patchwork, because you want to get the pluses. Patchwork lets you get the poly early on, so if you do get hit by a droll, it hurts less. If you get hit by a shifter, it sucks, and there's not really much you can really do about shifter. Shifter is like something you have to side for, and so you should always prepare your side deck for something to adjust tempo to deal with shifter. Triple Droplet, that's again, we only need to break a partial board. And then Fiendsmith Tract. Here are the fusion plays. We have triple Chimera Fusion, double poly, and 1 Dark Fusion. Dark Fusion can be searched via whatchamacallit, the Adusted Gold. But let me point this out. This doesn't need to summon an evil hero. I don't know why people thought it needed to summon an evil hero, but it doesn't need to summon out an evil hero. It summons out a fiend monster, and for the turn, that monster cannot be targeted. which makes it so it's really nice so that you can leave a Burfo on field and you can hold on to your Kotal in the graveyard for what really matters. So if they try to imperm you later on, you already addressed it. And then finally, one Foolish Burial, one Called by the Grave. Called by is called by to deal with hopefully the Drone Lockbird or the D-Shifter. But Foolish Burial, what are you sending into the graveyard? Well, to kind of close out the main deck here, what you're sending into the graveyard include Fiendsmith Engraver if you need the extra name. Some of the names that you want to revive during your opponent's turn, like Diabelze. Necrom is one of the go-to because this immediately gets into the Fiendsmith package, but this is just additional Fiendsmith names if you need it. Wang Hu is another additional like tech-based target. So these are tech-based, this is engine-based, and of course, who could forget one of the best names ever, Master Tao. And finally, the other thing that you would typically send into the graveyard, just in case you have access to like graveyard fusing, or you have a Gazelle and like a Burfo with the ability to fuse, but you don't have anything to kind of bring back of high value, you can send Mirror Sword Knight, or usually for the revival, or Kotal to protect your cards so that your next additional play, or if you're going to go into a sequence fusion, you have Kotal to protect that fusion from getting hit by Imperm. All right, that's the full breakdown of the main deck. Let's go into the extra deck. Okay, so these two, they're out now, so you don't get a free additional body, and you don't get to dump whatever you want into the graveyard. I think this dumps like 2 names into the graveyard, one illusion monster, and then the Master Tao to revive it. That's what I guess most people did with this, but this is out now. And then this is also out because it's banned, but this was like the burn for game, and this also means we don't have the Angel Blue Tears package anymore. But moving on, we have a ban list. It's actually good for the game overall. Like, this card gone is really good for the game. We have Moon of the Close Heaven, just in case you need an additional Light Fiend. We have Requiem and Sequence. Okay, so those are the Link monsters. We have Necroquip Princess, so that we have access to DDD High Wave King Caesar, and now we have to play a copy of Fiendsmith Desiree providing us with the Omni Negate. However, you don't have to go into this if you don't have the material. Sometimes you can just make an Evil Zord Lars instead, but I think the path to Desiree usually leaves the sequence on the field, which you can use as a fusion material for Magnum the Reliever. So into our Chimera package, we play one Chimera, King of the Phantom Beast. You can summon this as a win more, honestly. It's not like the best summon to open with unless you really get no value, but your best summon has to be Burfo. You can even play 3 copies of Burfo. There are many instances where you're going to summon out 2, but you can also shuffle back your Burfo with Sequence's effect to summon out another copy of Burfo. Like, that's how you can kind of tag one into the other. And then you can go into Magnum the Reliever, again with the Sequence, and then Sequence can actually equip to it as a way to trigger the effect and protect it. But if you have Requiem, not Requiem, but Desiree, of course equip to Desiree, right? And then, of course, our OTK monster, we have Chimera, the Illusion Beast, very powerful monster. And right now, I've doubled up on the Guardian Chimera until we get Duke of Demise. Once we get Duke of Demise, I'm going to be tagging one of these out for Duke of Demise, because Duke of Demise additional normal summon is honestly really busted. Imagine being able to normal summon out Gazelle, and then that gets like busted. It didn't work out. You fuse it off, or rather, you have 2 fiends in the hand, and you just fuse it off, and you just keep going. You just keep getting your normal. It's ridiculously powerful. And right now, 2 Guardian Chimera, so that you have the grinding capacity. Our Xyz monsters, DDD, High Wave King Caesar, and Lars, just in case you run into a Nib issue, because Nib is probably going to be played pretty frequently now. Nib is a lot stronger than before, and I do recommend making this if you feel unsafe. And then Lars is just additional negation for now. And finally, 1 Chaos Angel, because Chaos Angel is really easy to make. I think Fiendsmith Snake Eye has a very big problem against this card, unless they're playing board breakers, because otherwise they're not going to be able to clear this if you make it with Light Dark. A single copy of Nightmare Apprentice can make it. Nightmare Apprentice add Mirror Sword Knight, and also Mirror Sword Knight just make this card. You can just like hold the board. It sounds like a very cheesy win con, but it's only cheesy because it works, and it's such a like stupid simple play. Alright, you know I won't leave you guys without a combo, so check this out with the updated Gazelle and Nightmare Apprentice combo. Of course, the lack of Lacrima does mean that we lose about 2 extra bodies of fusion material, as well as a free dump of an extra Chimera fusion. So, where do we go from here? So if you do get into a game state where you feel like it's comfortable to play this and to play it all like this, start off with a special summon out of the Apprentice effect. Add yourself a copy of the Cornfield Kotal, activate Cornfield Kotal, grab yourself a Mirror Sword Knight, normal summon out the Gazelle, get Chimera Fusion, fuse the Gazelle and the Mirror Sword Knight together, and make your first copy of Baphomet. Chainlink 1 would be the Burfo, Chainlink 2 would be the Gazelle. Gazelle is going to add an illusion into your hand, and that's going to be Master Tau. And the Burfo is going to dump into the graveyard the Necrom. This is a very greedy line. You could just dump the Master Tau and get it over with and just play the line without the Fiendsmith, which is totally fine. You get to do the hand rip stuff and you get to maintain a pretty decent Chimera Fusion line. But at this particular point, add back the Chimera Fusion using its own effect, activate Necrom's effect to summon out the Adusted Gold. And now we can proceed to start going into our extra deck for the Link monsters, Fiendsmith Requiem effect. That's going to summon out the Engraver. Taking the Engraver and the Nightmare Apprentice, you can overlay them if you want, but it just gives you that option. But we're going to be Link summoning them away into Fiendsmith's Sequence. With the Sequence, we can activate it pretty safely right now. Because we can protect it with our Kotal and our Mirror Sword, but like for Kotal we can protect it from Imperm, so we can activate it right now, and we fuse the Engraver, the Requiem, and the Adusted Gold. You could summon another Burfo if you want, but we're not going in that direction. But if you do want to get to the second Burfo, what it opens up is they can overlay the two and you can just make a DDD High Wave King Caesar if needed. The alternative way to actually make a DDD High Wave King Caesar, quite simply, is to leave an Adusted Gold on the board, and if you can get this on the field and just put a Requiem on it and send those two for the Necro Princess, and then have a Fiendsmith Engraver. That's like one of the ways. But anyways, we're going to be putting these 3 back, and that's going to summon out the Fiendsmith's Requiem. Now we're going to make most of our material here, so we're going to activate the Chimera Fusion, and then we're going to pick the Master Tau and the Sequence, and the only monster that can use these kinds of material has to be Magnum the Reliever. Master Tau's effect is now going to kick off, and we're going to special summon back our Mirror Sword Knight. And with the Mirror Sword Knight there, we're going to activate the Desiree, or rather the Sequence, to equip the Desiree. Now we have our negate, we have our pop. Well, we have our pop only if this is still here. So we're going to activate the Mirror Sword Knight, and that's going to set ourselves up with a Baphomet summon, grabbing ourselves something a little bit more flexible. We're going to get King Tiger Wanghu and a Chimera Fusion. We have ways to summon out this Wanghu if we really need it. You could just immediately just play Chimera Fusion, put it into, well, you can just put it up right away and just rip a card out of your opponent's hand, leaving it in the graveyard. But also, before we continue on with this, so this is on the field, you can activate Magnum the Reliever's effect to put back the Chimera Fusion that can't be added back to draw an additional card, leaving you with basically a full board of monsters plus the additional 3 cards of unknownness, and you have a Chimera Fusion that's also going to be set. So if you want to look at disruption and what you have a double Omni right here just from the Desiree. You have this, which is Baphomet. Baphomet is just a name, but Baphomet essentially means your stuff can't really be targeted, and you have a Mirror Sword Knight in the graveyard. If you want to maintain like more stuff, and you want the Mirror Sword Knight in the graveyard, it really depends on what you have in your hand. Your hand will dictate what's different. So you have also a pop, but this pop will require you to burn the Chimera Fusion first. A lot of people want to like, oh, but I want to lock my opponent out. If you wanted to lock your opponent out instead, that is a possibility as well, but you're going to need to somehow throw into the graveyard Diabelze or have it in your hand so that you use it as a fusion material for a second copy of Baphomet, reviving it instantly onto the field. That's one way of doing it. Alternatively, that's kind of similar for like Wang Hu. There's multiple ways you can do it. One way, if you want to extend into like the next turn, you go Chimera Fusion, you fuse away these two, okay? And you summon out another copy of Burfo, of all things. So Burfo is going to send the original, and then instead of reviving Mirror Sword Knight, you would revive a copy of like Master Tao. And then if a card does activate on the field, what you would do is you go Magnum, pop this, and summon this onto the field. That's like one way of doing, or let your opponent kind of clear it themselves. Ideally, the reason why we play so many copies of Polymerization and the like is so that you can actually keep the additional copy of Chimera Fusion, and instead using like the Edgem chain cards to fetch you additional polys, leaving polys in the graveyard so that you can have 2 copies of Chimera Fusion when you pass your turn. So that's all I got for this video, guys, but don't forget, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, because I am going to WCS probably by the time you're watching this. I'm already on my way there, so I'm going to give you guys the insider look, look at the event through my eyes. I'm going to open a behind the scenes window for you for World Championship 2024. All right, that's why this video seems a little bit rushed, but don't worry. Once Duca Demise comes out, we're going to get a combo update for this deck in particular, because I love this deck. And thank you guys for watching. Hit subscribe, ding the notification bell, and best of luck to all of you going to your, I guess, watch parties. All right, maybe I'll see you guys there.